is Liz Partsch,
And I am Paul Rowley,
and welcome to Farm and Dairy's Weekly Rundown.
where we will be giving you a rundown of all of the news from the last week. My goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was some news.
There was always news,
Yeah.
What can we say? There's just always news. There's
Yeah.
news whether we want there to be or not. And we usually in this industry probably do want there to be news because then what else would we do for work? But anyway, yeah,
Yeah. Well, I'll kick us off,
please
Paul, if
do.
that's all
Yeah,
right.
of course.
So Paul,
hmm
you know what brings cold weather?
Um, no, please tell me.
Ice fishing.
Oh, yeah, it
Yeah.
does. Yeah.
Well, it brings frozen lakes, but
Okay, yeah, but
for ice
right.
fishing, right?
Yeah.
So 2 weeks ago, I got the honor of ice fishing with the bros on Cannonsburg Lake,
Oh,
and I got to read about my experience on
the
ice fishing
pros.
for the front of auction this week.
Excellent.
Yeah. So before I get into the story itself, I'd like to give a little background information on how this story kind of came about,
hmm
because it's been talked about for a little while in the office here at Farm and Dairy.
Yeah.
So for weeks, my dad's friend Terry Tischler has been telling me, I need to do a story about ice fishing, come out with him and his friends on the ice. So I went into the office and told our editor, the lovely Rachel Wagner, about him telling me this, and then
Mhm.
she had mentioned our circulation guy, Mike Ping, as many of you probably know. He loves to ice fish, and she messaged him instantly that day, and then he came running into the office,
Oh, wow.
like instantly. It was so funny, and he was just really hyping it up about how awesome ice fishing was because he goes ice fishing a lot.
Mm.
So then him really telling me was like, okay, well, this is the nail in the coffin. I have to do it now. Initially, so I guess now day of, initially I was obviously pretty nervous about walking on the ice, but fortunately, I couldn't have picked a better day as the ice measured 11 and a half inches thick
Oh, wow.
that day.
Cool.
From several subsequent weeks of cold weather.
Yeah.
Ice needs to be at least 4 inches thick to be safe to ice fish on. So in this story, I talk about Tischler's group of ice fishing friends who how they started ice fishing after retirement. Some of the close calls, or at least the one close call they had over the years, and then some of Terry Tischler's ice fishing essentials. I gave
wow.
like a good little list about what he considers essentials. And then while a successful catch is almost never certain in ice fishing, Bill Dugan had some success catching 3 rainbow trout, and Bruce Cashdollar caught 1 trout. Those are Terry Tischler's friends.
Oh, wow.
Side note, Cashdollar had his dog Winslow on the ice the whole day, but he kept slipping that day, so he decided to sit in Cashdollar's lap the whole time, and I got some really cute photos of Winslow like curled up in a lap on the ice. It was so adorable.
Winslow.
Yeah. The day ended with discussions of a trout cookout.
Oh.
So, but to read more, including all of the other juicy details I left out about how fun that ice fishing day was, you can read the story on the front of auction this week.
Yeah. That sounds like super fun, honestly.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Yeah.
I mean, I enjoyed the experience. I don't know if I'll be an avid ice fisher because I will say after 2 hours, I was really feeling the cold.
Oh, I bet.
I'm
Yeah.
not a cold person.
No.
But I
Neither
feel
am
like
I.
maybe if I had some of the Terry Tischler essentials I mentioned in this story,
Yeah,
I'd be a
okay.
bit like more willing to
Right.
go out ice fishing more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was fun though.
That's cool. May I just say too, last week we had that sort of moment of brevity in this endless, apparently,
Yeah.
winter, where like at least where I am, it like the temperature reached to be like 50.
Yeah,
And
no,
is
it was
that
like 60 Saturday. It was
right?
beautiful. I took a walk around downtown, and it
Oh my
actually felt
God.
nice to walk.
Yeah.
I was like sweating
Right,
actually.
right. Oh, it was tremendous. And then it just slammed back into like reality
Mhm.
with the snow and that horrible blizzard on the East Coast. And then,
Yeah.
we,
You were really slammed with reality.
yes, I also, in Cleveland, where I'm from, we received a good, probably about 6 inches, I think, as certainly by now, with my neighborhood specifically. The snow totals, they kind of vary because of like the lake effect. So I had a little bit of trouble getting out of town today, but ready for winter to be over. But also this ice fishing story kind of reminds me that it's February still.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we have to try to make the best of it, which is what certainly ice
Yeah. Well,
ice
that's kind of
fishing.
like the purpose. Yeah, you
Yeah.
literally nailed it on the head. That is kind of the purpose of why Terry Tischler started ice
Yeah.
fishing, because he was like, there is nothing to do in the winter.
It's so dull.
So I just started
Yeah,
ice
and it's so
fishing.
miserable.
And
Yeah.
he's really made a cool, like, fun, and like his group has really made it kind of a fun activity.
That's great.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of reminds you of like you try to not stop like doing things in winter, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, hibernate if you want. Like, come on,
Right.
everybody loves like yes, like
Mhm.
you have time to yourself. Don't
Right.
leave the house. But like also some people get depressed and need to do other
Yes.
things. And
So
I
true.
think that's what maybe this story talks about.
Yeah.
Not
Solid.
depression itself, but just
Right.
like, wanting to do
An
things in
anecdote.
winter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly. Take what you want from it.
yeah.
It was fun. This is the raunchiest story I think I've ever told in Dairy. In cahoots with the Dear Kabasi story for sure.
Excellent. Cool.
So
All right. Well, awesome. Well, speaking of hibernation, that is what I would like to do after trying to wrangle this beast of forever chemicals, aka per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. If you recall, last week we had part 1 of my PFAS story, and this week, God willing, you will have the second part of the PFAS story, which is also colloquially known around here as the Odyssey, because it is both a long sojourn, a journey, if you will. It is also 10,000 inches too long. So anyway, just for a little bit of refresher, there are, if you don't know, chemicals coursing through your blood right now that are bringing you terminal illnesses. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that.
yeah.
But for
I
this,
mean, great way to put it to scare the hell out of people.
yes, that is the thread here from these forever chemicals, that dubbed forever chemicals. Where are those from? Off the top of my head, the first thing that I can think of is like the Teflon coating in like your favorite pot that you cook everything with.
Mhm.
Is the coating itself was devised in what, maybe the 1940s, if you will. And at the time, it was seen as this like miraculous thing. They're used in firefighting foam. The things that we like really need, like you need a good pot that can resist heat and grease and water. You need foam for putting out dangerous fires. And it turns out that the components in these things that made them just like really resistant and really like useful has actually been leaching into the groundwater. And these chemicals have been, we're dealing with the ramifications of where all of this where it's going. The chemicals have now, anyway, so that's kind of just a little bit of refresher where you can find some of these things. So now the question is how bad is it and who's going to deal with it? That's kind of like what we are here to figure out. So there's been PFAS contamination in the news for many, many years. Some folks out there might be familiar with the movie Dark Water,
Yeah.
starring my boy Mark
If
Wahlberg
you haven't watched it, you really should.
and Miss Anne Hathaway.
Yeah. Very eye opening.
Yes, and that is I actually have not seen this, but because I can't stream it anywhere, but I do want to see it, and it kind of touches on, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Liz, but this is like the contamination as it emerged in West Virginia.
Yeah, Chemours, the company.
Yeah.
It kind of details a farmer and his like losses.
The cattle
with
are all
cattle. Yeah,
dying.
the cattle are dying. It was very, very eye opening,
Yeah.
and especially in our coverage region. I mean, it literally
Right.
is in our coverage region.
Right.
So yeah, definitely something to check out.
Also,
Yeah.
the trailer of that movie is terrifying.
Yeah,
so
no, I mean
it's like-
you don't end, and the movie doesn't end like great.
Right,
Like you
no,
end up being really upset and
Yeah.
sad. So, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that's important.
Right. So that's sort of like the backdrop of all of this for sure. More recently, in like 2016, it really started to come into the conversation when high levels of PFAS contamination were discovered on a dairy farm in Maine. What happened afterwards was a couple of things. Maine was like, oh, gee, we got to figure out what we're going to do about this because this is actually a very big problem. And this literally, and Liz, you've written about this topic too. So like, I'm sure you can kind of even just shed some light over like when it was, it's been like kind of underestimated almost like all over across these last couple of years. And the last few years, like more researchers have done and we're like, oh, hey, actually exposure to these chemicals is really, really bad. And like, it's just gotten like the problem has seemingly grown into this sort of
Yeah.
monster that we now just sort of live with all the time.
I mean, it's inevitable.
It's inevitable.
It's also kind of inevitable at this point. Which is
Yeah.
like, but it's not like we shouldn't take care of it.
Right.
Obviously.
It's just like, oh, gee. So Maine was like, how do we do something about this? So they did several things. They have done aggressive testing. They've done direct support for farmers. They also created in 2022 a $60 million relief fund. Today, the state of Maine is really considered a national leader in confronting PFAS contamination in agriculture and kind of beyond. So that's cool. of and I talked to a person who like was the behind a lot of recommendations that were just released and just last year and then talked about in January in Congress and what basically trying to give legislators a roadmap for like here's what's worked, here's what we think that you guys federally should do to like because this problem is not just limited to like the Northeast corridor or like sort of the Rust Belt states or anything like that. Like it's a pretty prolific problem, and with all of that kind of work that Maine has done, this person that I talked to, she told me that out of 111 farms in Maine where PFAS has really been detected, only 6 have gone out of business thanks to kind of the work that they've done to support those farms so that you don't lose your livelihood if you discover this horrible contamination there. So that is proof, according to her, that contamination does not have to mean the end of the farm. But outside Maine, the picture is a little bit murkier. In many states, little testing means like little or no available data. And without that real data, it's really hard to find political momentum for like, how do we address the problem or do anything about it? So you get no data, so you have no action. And then it's kind of this loop that continues. And then meanwhile, farmers are kind of caught in the middle of all of that. And that's not a good place to be. There's also this whole thing that or aspect of this story, which is sewage sludge, which has been kind of rebranded as biosolids. And it's been long promoted as a low cost and really like sustainable fertilizer. And that's like really cool. Wastewater plants, though, were never designed to like prepare that biosolid and then remove the PFAS from it because they weren't looking for it because we didn't really know about it that much. So anyway, there's these chemicals that are like inherent in the sludge now, and then it gets spread on farm fields. And then from there, the PFAS chemicals can really move into the soil, the groundwater, the crops. It's kind of nasty how they can have like free reign of the farm at that point. So there's a whole lot of things to unpack here. The story still needs some work as of the time of recording of this show. So I'm going to go back to that very soon. But I guess the question, like, if for our casual listeners here, is they are, of course, colloquially, it's the second time I use that word in this podcast. Cool. They are called forever chemicals, but whether, the damage that they cause is forever is kind of they haven't really, it depends on what happens next, And so with that, I will leave you guys to discover the story for yourselves.
Yeah.
Plus, note the beautiful infographic that was created
Yeah.
in-house, which is, on our front page.
Yeah, cool stuff.
Yeah. There we
Yeah.
go.
Important topic. So
Yeah.
everybody go read up on it.
Yeah.
'Cause they're not going away
They're not
anytime
going
soon.
away,
They're actually here
guys.
forever.
We gotta do something about it.
Gonna live forever.
I know. Do you want to at this point? I don't.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
I only want to live
Take me
forever
out.
to listen to that song. 'Cause
Yeah.
That song's really good.
Yeah.
Oasis. Shout out Oasis.
Mm,
They don't.
Yeah.
They won't listen to this. Anyway, in more serious news.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I had that transition written down without knowing. In equally serious news, to Paul's, because that is very serious over there. What Paul was talking about. The U.S. Supreme Court struck down. Yeah, the Supreme Court struck down the Trump administration's tariff in a 6-3 ruling.
Shocking.
And national. It really is.
Yeah.
And national ag groups are relieved, stating that if imposed or like if, they went into effect or continue to be in effect, the tariffs would hurt already struggling farmers. So the core majority cited that the tariffs imposed by Trump last spring were unconstitutional as only Congress has the authority to impose like taxation stuff like that.
Right.
So this includes a 10% reciprocal tariff on almost all countries. Last year, Trump stated that the large trade deficits pose a threat to national security and the economy of the United States. But many small businesses in several states have argued that these tariffs actually hurt American businesses, leading them to file lawsuits in the lower courts.
Oh, interesting.
And this is how the Supreme Court ended up taking this case and siding with the businesses most recently. But this did not stop Trump, who, after the ruling, announced a new global tariff of 10% that will last for 150 days without congressional approval. More information on what that that means in the story.
Mm-hmm.
But he later increased this tariff to 15%
Oh.
on Saturday.
Oh.
So still ongoing.
Yeah.
Many national ag groups are urging Trump, though, to back down on tariffs, including the American Soybean Association president and Ohio farmer Scott Metzger, who said U.S. soybean growers are reliant upon imports for critical farming tools like fertilizer, seeds, pesticides, and agricultural equipment, and that many farmers, including many soybean farmers in particular, are already struggling.
Okay.
So yeah, a lot of, pretty much most of the national ag groups that I've included in the story are really just urging the Trump administration to, move forward with caution,
Yeah.
and do what's best in the interest of agriculture.
Yeah.
So to read more on all of that's kind of unfolding, you can go online,
Yeah.
farmandairy.com, or find it in the paper somewhere.
Yeah.
We don't know yet,
Yeah.
but we'll know tomorrow.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool.
Good idea, you guys. All right. Well, I guess that's back to me. Well, to some people, at least, Pennsylvania right now is in the midst of a highly pathogenic avian influenza outbreak. The avian influenza outbreak is not funny, but just anyway, I'll continue. That has impacted more than 7 million birds in the south central part of the state. So that is a lot of birds, and that is a big area. That's to some people. That's just some people have accepted that's what's happening. For other people, specifically people who've connected with us on social media where we shared the story, actually none of what I just said or I'm about to tell you is real or true. I'm just a shill for some agenda or something that would like to see the price of eggs artificially inflated before Easter. So I'm not really. There were several things and theories being shared under the comments on this article that our editor Rachel Rackner wrote. So I don't know. Pick I don't know if we should have a bingo board. Kind of just like.
The question is, do we really need to experience the deaths to believe in them?
I don't know. We're gonna talk about this a little bit later. Actually,
okay.
This is
cool.
segueing
into.
Okay. Right.
Well.
So anyway, either way, manufactured or not, according to this story, more than 20 flocks of birds, mostly concentrated in Lancaster County, have been hit by this deadly virus in the last 30 days, which is significant. Pennsylvania also currently has the most H5N1 bird flu cases in the country, according to depending on who you talk to. To contain the spread and help affected farms, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro has announced that he was deploying additional resources to support the state's response, which include the following: 6 extra state employees, additional testing capacity, and those things are going to help supposedly respond to this situation, which to some people is not real. Since the beginning of this year, the Pennsylvania Animal Diagnostic Laboratory System has performed 8,000 tests, and according to the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, starting on February 19th, which was just a few days ago, 42 U.S. Department of Agriculture employees also joined 55 state veterinarians and other employees, as well as 4 Penn State Extension experts and 3 members of the Pennsylvania National Guard support team. So there's a lot of people involved in trying to mitigate this maybe made up situation, but most definitely real if you're one of the birds that have died.
Yeah.
The impacted flocks include 2 commercial egg-laying facilities with 2.6 million and 1.4 million birds, respectively. That's a lot of birds, as well as a smaller scale places, turkey and duck farms. Pennsylvania has lost more than 14 million birds since the domestic H5N1 bird flu outbreak began 4 years ago, allegedly, depending on who's listening. With about half of those lost since the beginning of this year, apparently. Or the year? No, not this year. But some year. There's a lot of them lost. Anyway. Yeah. So the outbreak is not only impacting poultry and egg producers, though, which is very important to know. There are also, and fewer people had anything to say. I don't think they read the article, so they did not talk about this aspect of the story. So anyway, there are 214 dairy farms in the 3-kilometer, what's called a surveillance zone around affected poultry farms that are required to undergo bulk tank milking testing, according to the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. Some of those operations are co-located with poultry farms in Pennsylvania's agricultural heartland. Dairy farms with a USDA-issued federal premises identification number will be contacted if they are required to test their milk. Farmers can also use the state's HPAI control address checker, which the website is listed in the article, to check the state of the outbreak as it relates to their property. While fatal in poultry, HPAI in cattle is not deadly, but it can severely affect milk production and lead to serious illness in some cows. So it's definitely worth watching, and we definitely don't want to see any of our cows become ill. We also don't want to see any of our poultry become ill. We don't want to see anybody become ill. We don't want to see prices of these things inflate before Easter. I think we just don't want this to be a problem, but it is happening. So we are whatever the reasons behind it are.
Yeah.
We are reporting on it.
Let's repeat that. It's happening.
It's happening. It is happening.
It's happening.
These animals
I
are
mean,
being sickened and dying.
It's
so,
not like some secret man is controlling the price of eggs just to,
so.
piss off and hurt and make all of our lives difficult. The
What
price
can
of
I say?
eggs is so high. It's $8 a dozen because there's fewer chickens producing eggs because
lot of
bird flu
things.
is wiping them out.
So
So if you just think about that logistically,
Yep.
the facts are there. Whether you believe it or not isn't going to make the problem go away. So
there
there
you
we
go.
go.
Yeah. But you may also just conclude that this is all lies. So anyway, I will leave it at that. Do with that information as you will, I guess.
Well, since we are on the topic of media, because we're talking about
That's right.
believing in media or
Correct,
not,
correct.
this is a great segue into our next topic.
Mm-hmm.
This week, Selena Zito, one of our columnists,
Right.
she actually wrote a really great, very timely and important topic. Something that at least we here in the newsroom have been talking a lot about and paying attention to.
Yeah.
The decline of local and just in general newspapers. I mean, for me, I know you probably have been watching it, but it's been very troubling to me as journalists. Specifically, she wrote about the closing of the Derrick and the News Herald, owned by the Derrick Publishing Company. So their last publication will be March 20th. The paper first began in 1871 as the Daily Derrick. Yep, at a time when the oil boom, which started in the region, which Pennsylvania was the first place in the country for this. The oil boom was firmly established by the time the paper had opened. She dives into the history of Oil City before the oil boom, when Edwin Drake successfully drilled for oil. After this discovery, land prices soared, boom towns sprung up, and vast stretches of lush green wilderness were cleared and scarred in the rush for petroleum. So she really dives into the history, which was honestly extremely fascinating to me. And until the Daily Derrick began, reporting just really wasn't really there. There wasn't a lot of coverage of this industrial engine transforming the region, as she called it, including like all the accidents and fatal conditions that were occurring because people were drilling wells unchecked, right?
Yeah.
But the Derrick isn't the only 200-year-old newspaper that is closing, as many people probably should know. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette also announced its closure earlier this year.
Yeah.
That's not all, though. Aside from a bunch of other local newspapers that I'm not going to name right now because this topic will be talked about future in our newspaper.
Hint,
in the
wink,
future,
wink.
wink, wink. So I'm going to save that conversation for next week.
Yeah.
But there's also lots of layoffs happening in newsrooms, including the Washington Post had massive layoffs.
Oh, God,
she mentions another newspaper in there that also had massive layoffs.
Yeah.
So Zito's column really begs readers to think about the question, what happens when local media disappears? And she answers really well. This is a quote that I actually just want to read from the story to get our reader, everybody thinking about it. It's troubling when a major city such as Pittsburgh or a powerful hub like Washington, D.C. loses local journalism. But it may matter even more in a small community such as Oil City, where the loss creates a true news desert, weakening the region's social fabric, eroding its sense of connection, and leaving those in power with no guardrails at all.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really important. A great way to put it, without media, everything goes unchecked.
Yeah.
Especially local media. I mean, we get the honor of covering such a wide region, but local media, it really gives that focus and attention to your region, and they're all about that region. They understand their readers because they may be from there. So it just we definitely are seeing a huge crisis happening in journalism right now, and I just honestly think it would be wrong for us as journalists not to talk about it.
Yeah.
Um, so that was my kind of 2 cents in that. I really enjoyed Selena Zito's column. I thought it was just a very important topic to talk about right now in the paper.
Right.
As we are family-owned newspaper, we've been running for over 100 years. I'm sure everybody here at the newspaper loves doing what we want to do. We want to keep doing what we want to do. And it's important that you support your local media so that you can get reliable news,
Yeah.
like the stuff that we try to put out here. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Here.
thanks, Paul.
Yeah. Well,
Cool. I think that's all the stories for this week.
I believe it is. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Yes, that is all the top stories for this week, guys.
Yeah, it's all we got in us. But thank you for joining us. And to read more, you know the drill. You can check out farmanddairy.com or find your local newsstand.
Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you guys next week.
Bye for now.